Greetings, it is MaxoDiddly here, and today I am here with another Visual Basic tutorial to help you get an A in your coursework or exam. And today we're here with how to validate the file size of a file using Visual Basic. So let's get right into it. Firstly, we have got dim file path as string equals meme profile pic.png. This string is going to represent the file path of the file we wish to validate. Then we're going to do console.writeLine, valid file size, file path, and 300. Console.writeLine, print something to the console. Valid file size is going to be a function we're going to create in a second. It's going to return a true or a false to tell us if the file size is valid or not. Then we've got console.readLine, that just stops the console from closing. So let's go and define this function. Function, valid file size, file path as string, max size as long, as boolean. So we are creating a function that returns a boolean, so a true or a false. It's called valid file size, and it's going to take in two parameters, file path as string and max size as long. So you might be thinking, okay Max, file path as string, that makes sense, it's the file path of the file you want to validate. But why is max size a long and not an int? Well, basically, depending on the file sizes you're going to be working with, you might hit the 32-bit integer limit. And to future-proof against that, we're going to be using a long as it can store bigger numbers. Like if you're working with bytes or kilobytes, there's a really good chance you could hit the integer limit that an integer has. So we're using a long in case that happens. As it says here, it represents a 64-bit signed integer. Inside, we're going to do if notFile.exists file path, then return false, end if. So what's going on here? We're checking if the file path doesn't exist. So what are we doing here? We're checking if the file doesn't exist. Why do we do that though? Well, basically, we don't want to check the file size of a file that doesn't exist. So we can do file.exists file path. That will tell us if the file exists or not. And this if statement, we're going to put a not. So we're by default checking if there is no file. If there's no file, return false, end if, and then that terminates the function. If file.exists is true, we ignore this and carry on. Then we're going to do declare in memory, or dim, size in KB as long equals file len file path divided by 1024. So what are we doing here? Basically, we're creating a long variable called size in KB. It's going to store the file size or length of the file we're going to validate. It's a long because just in case we go over the integer limit of 32 bits. File len gets the length or size of a file in bytes. And bytes are really small, but their numerical value is gigantic. So what we can do is, we're going to actually convert the bytes to kilobytes by dividing by 1024. That's how you go from bytes to kilobytes. Kilobytes, while small, are easier to work with. You know, a profile picture that small is going to be in kilobytes most likely, as opposed to megabytes. You can customize this though. After that we do return size in KB less than max size. So this is a boolean statement. Basically we're going to check if the size in KB is less than the maximum size. If it is, then return true. If not, return false. You could obviously change it to be less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, or even equal to if you want to. You just need to change the statement and maybe change this variable name. But that's it for this tutorial. So what we're going to do is we're going to save our code, then we're going to right click on our project, open in File Explorer, and you'll be taken to where the project is in Visual Basic. Go to bin, debug, and this is where our actual code is. And since we are using the relative file path for our file we're validating, we can just put the name of the file. You can put the file you want to validate wherever you want. I'm just showing you how you can get to your project folder in Visual Studio. As you can see, the file size is 280 kilobytes. So let's hit play. And we're checking if the file path is less than 300 kilobytes. And it is. It's less than 300 kilobytes, which is pretty good. However, Let's change it to 250. As you can see, it says false because it's not less than 250, because it's 280, which is greater than it. And thanks for being a great audience. Be sure to leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed. If you want more Visual Basic tutorials, click the eye up in the corner. We're going to have more validation tutorials coming out soon, so stay tuned.